I know a lot of men that has gone into prison and come out of prison with a big sex addiction. What would you say about sex addiction, and how can those who suffer with sex addiction, either in prison or in the community, can deal with that?
So I think sex addiction or any form of addiction is definitely something that stems from mental frustration, lack of course, in prison, there's a lack of resources from that perspective, whether it's engaging sexually or even understanding. I mean, people speak on mental health, but not from a sex perspective always. And I can't really speak because I haven't been in prison, but I do know that when you're confined to a space, you're already on a level of frustration. You need to be able to exert that healthily. And sometimes sex can be that outlet, but if you're not able to have sex, then there's a lot of hormones that you're dealing with. There's a lot of lack of access to the things that will help you feel like you're having that release. And that can add on to already existing issues. Sometimes people go into prison thinking that they're okay, but there's a lot of trauma that hasn't actually been dealt with. And trauma can lead to addiction of any kind. Sometimes there's an intersectionality of addiction. Sometimes you're addicted to, maybe it's drugs, and that can also make you addicted to other things, which could also be sex addiction. So I think from the resources that need to be utilized if you're in prison, you need to understand what it is at your disposal. You need to know what you have or what you have access to. You need to educate yourself. Obviously, it's not necessarily through the internet, but there are books. There's the library. There's your peers. There's your wardens who may be able to say, okay, speak to this mental health person about this. And I think leaning into your brothers or sisters jail is going to, because with mental health, a lot of the recovery and the management of mental health issues come from community, and you need to have that outlet of community to be able to speak. And if you're educating yourself and then sharing that information amongst yourselves, you're helping each other with coping mechanisms. You're helping each other manage. And I think that's the only thing you really can do if you are tapping into how to fix yourself from a mental health perspective. You can potentially prevent addiction, or you can help manage addiction. If it's an addiction, it's sometimes also very hard to let go of, but sex addiction is something that I think can be cured. Whereas there's certain drug addictions.
Do you think it can be cured, sex addiction?
Yeah.
Okay. By what? Having sex?
No.
What's the other options?
The core of addiction. So with addiction, addiction becomes an issue. Addiction becomes addiction when it is harming you or the next person. Okay. So if you're just having a lot of sex, you just like a lot of sex. You can't always be classified as an addict. But the moment you start harming somebody, or if it's interrupting your day-to-day activities where you're not able to sleep, you're struggling at work, you're finding like, you have this itch and you need to get out, you're harming children, you're harming yourself, that's when it becomes an addiction. Of course. If you're just having a lot of sex, you're just like, I know, and a lot of people throw words around so loosely, like, oh, I'm such a nymph. No, a nymphomaniac is an actual mental health issue. It is a sex addiction. So a lot of people just use the wrong terminology for what it is that they're experiencing. But if you're educating yourself, you'll know whether you're an addict. And if you are educating yourself, then you'll also figure out ways to address what you could potentially be going through if it's not addiction. And it's always psychological.